Anthony Yarde says it's time for change. He says there's going to be sit-down talks and a final decision and announcement will be made at the end of the year. Well, we're nearly at the end of the year now, and this was just a day ago. So let's see what happens. But my thoughts are Tunde Ajayi, despite all the flack he gets online, I know he's not a lot of people's cup of tea. He's not really my cup of tea in terms of the way he comes across and his personality. But where I have to disagree with a lot of people is in their assertion that Tunde is a rubbish trainer. I don't think Tunde is a rubbish trainer. I think Tunde is actually a good trainer. But he might not be the right trainer for Anthony Yarde right now to take him to the next level. If you look at the fact that Anthony Yarde had so few amateur fights, limited pro experience as well, to have the kind of technique that he has is pretty extraordinary. I'm not saying his technique is perfect, but he looks very polished for a guy who's so inexperienced. And you have to give Tunde credit for that, whether you like it or not. If you're being real, you have to give him credit. Where I have more of a critical view of Tunde is not to do with what he teaches as a trainer technically, but perhaps his decisions as a manager, I think, leave a lot more to be desired. And also as a trainer, the psychological aspect, I think Tunde is quite good at that in terms of instilling confidence into his charge. But at the same time, the whole lions in the camp thing and the cheerleading and all that kind of stuff around Anthony Yarde, I think maybe went a little bit too far. So I get the idea of what he was doing, and I do think it worked to some extent, but I also think that they went a little too much in that direction to the point where the fighter can start having unrealistic perceptions of what's going on in a certain fight. So, for example, this Lyndon Arthur fight where Tunde was telling Anthony everything's okay, it's all cool, you're beating him and so on, and there was no real urgency in that corner, even though it was a real close fight. At the end of the fight, Anthony Yarde believed he'd won by, I don't know, a landslide, but after the fight, he seemed certain that he'd won, that he'd done it comfortably. Whereas for most neutral observers, that wasn't the case. They either had Lyndon Arthur winning, or they had Anthony Yarde winning narrowly, or maybe they had it a draw. So for his perception, and look, fighters in the ring are not scoring the fight objectively. They can't be, because they're trying to keep a positive mindset and focus on their own successes, not on the successes of the opponent. I get it. But that's where the trainer's supposed to come in. That's where the trainer, if it's a close fight, is supposed to bring you back down to reality in the corner and say, look, this is a close fight. You need to step on the gas. You see? Now, when it comes to Anthony Yarde, if he's considering leaving Tunde Ajayi, that's all well and good, but is he leaving Tunde for the right reasons if he decides to leave him? Is he leaving him for the right reasons? What I mean by that is Tunde is friends with Spencer Fearon, right? And Spencer Fearon believes that the fight was close and it wasn't a robbery. In the immediate aftermath, Tunde was saying, it's a robbery and this, that, and the other. But then, actually, he didn't say much, to be fair. I don't know if he actually called it a robbery. Let me not misquote him. But he seemed to be suggesting that it was a robbery because he was saying they're playing with this young man's life and they're messing with his career and all this kind of stuff. And that is suggestive of, it being a robbery in his view. So him saying all that, did he then change his mind after watching the fight and say, actually, it was close? And did he then speak to Anthony Yarde and say, it was actually close? How did Anthony Yarde take that if that was the case? So what I'm getting at here is Anthony Yarde may have been in a bubble, like an ego bubble. And if that bubble got burst, he might be looking to blame someone for bursting the bubble. He might feel comfortable in that bubble. And he might look at Tunde or Spencer Fearon and say, okay, you're bursting my bubble. I don't want to be around you guys no more. I want to be around people who made me feel like I felt prior to the Kovalev fight, where people were just gassing me up and lions in the camp and we don't get weak, we get deep and all this kind of stuff. Maybe he only wants that around him. He doesn't want any home truths being told to him. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that this is a fact. I'm just postulating here. Perhaps that's not the case. Perhaps Anthony Yarde has been realistic. Perhaps he's looked at the fight himself in the cold light of day and thought, actually, it was a close fight. Maybe he's come to terms with that. And maybe he's looking at Tunde and saying, why didn't you tell me to step on the gas? Maybe he's looking at the Kovalev fight and the Lyndon Arthur fight together and saying, when it mattered, Tunde didn't offer me the best instructions. So we'll see what happens going forward for Anthony Yarde. As I said in the previous video, I think somebody like Adam Booth would be an interesting pairing for Anthony Yarde, at least have a trial with Adam Booth, because he likes working with those explosive fighters and he could move his style in a different direction. Or somebody like Shane McGuigan. And if he's not going to go in that direction, you know, the Adam Booth fast twitch ambush style, and Shane McGuigan's fighters have a similar style, but it is a bit different. If he's not going to go in that direction, then maybe he needs to go in the direction of a trainer who can teach him better pressure fighting skills. Because he is a relatively short guy at light heavyweight, not crazy short. He's about 5'11", 6 feet. But there are a lot of taller light heavyweights out there. And Lyndon Arthur showed that behind the jab, even Sergey Kovalev showed that behind the jab, Anthony Yarde can be controlled to some degree. So if he can get with a trainer that can teach him how to get past the jab more effectively, who can teach him the mindset of a pressure fighter, you know, and to be fair, in the Kovalev fight, he did bite down on his gum shield and he was willing to walk through fire. But you can do it more skillfully. You know, you can get in close without getting hit so clean with the jab or power shots and do your own damage. You just have to be taught how to do that the right way. So maybe he can go to a trainer that's going to teach him those skills instead. But whatever the case may be, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Anthony Yarde saying it's time for change. I know the majority of people are going to say, thank God, Tunde's rubbish. He doesn't know what he's doing. When Anthony Yarde needs assistance in the corner, all Tunde's got for him is lines in the camp. I know all that, you know, all that stuff is cute. But the truth of the matter is Tunde is not a rubbish trainer. He is a good trainer. But I just think he is a little too enthusiastic with the cheerleading. And that might have the opposite effect of what he's looking for. Well, maybe not the opposite effect, but it might introduce a little bit of imbalance psychologically in the fighter, where they're not grounded enough in reality. And also his decisions as a manager leave a lot to be desired, particularly if you look at what Anthony Yarde's career was prior to the Kovalev fight. He was just fighting pure stiffs, right? Pure stiffs, little guys, super middleweights and stuff like that. And then they went from fighting a really poor level of opposition and jumped all the way up to fight Kovalev. Now, I've spoken about Frank Warren in the past, but Frank Warren only brings the opponents to Tunde. Ultimately, it's Tunde and Anthony that picked them. And, you know, Tunde's the manager, not Frank Warren. So you got to put most of the blame for the choice of opponent at Tunde's feet. Some of it Frank Warren, of course, because he does bring the opponents to Tunde. And Frank Warren also advised Tunde to take the Kovalev fight for Anthony Yarde. He was the one that advised him to do that. And he said to Tunde prior to Kovalev losing to Alvarez, he said, Kovalev's there for the taking. So, you know, you might want to jump on it sooner rather than later. So I guess it's collective blame, but certainly to some degree you have to blame Tunde Ajayi because he is the official manager at the end of the day. But those are my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to access all my boxing content advert-free and enjoy the convenience of listening via a podcast app with the option to download in high-quality MP3, then consider joining me on Patreon. In addition to the aforementioned perks, you'll also gain access to exclusive weekly live stream Q&A sessions and hangouts, as well as uncensored, no-holds-barred uploads, which are too blue for YouTube. This includes my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Boxing Extra. There's no contract, there's no commitment, it's only £2.50 a month and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of hardcore boxing enthusiasts by signing up with me here on Patreon today.